Welcome to the Fitness Industry Success Show. Ideas, inspiration, and interviews to take your fitness business to the next level. With over 23 years of fitness industry experience and the founder of LEADLION, an innovative fitness marketing agency, here's your host, Nick Parker.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Fitness Industry Success Show. I am incredibly excited about today's guest. With me, Paul Schaller, who is the Vice Chairman and former CEO of ABC Financial. For those of you that are not familiar, ABC Financial is a leading provider of technology and related financial services for the health and fitness industry. Here's what's interesting. Paul has over 30 years of experience in the fitness industry and has tons of valuable insights he's going to provide us today from data, relationships, and time, but also by visiting over 10,000 health clubs personally. Paul, I don't even know how that's humanly possible, but welcome to the show. You're the man and you're so well traveled. How are you today?
Hello, Nick. Thank you for having me. I look forward to sharing some information and some just of my past experiences, and for whatever value can be taken for that, I'm happy to do so. And I appreciate you asking me on the show today.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. You and I met back at Ursha, and we've had some conversations since then. And I just can I pay you a compliment if it's okay before we start the show? You're one of these guys that feel like I've known for 20 years, even after 10 minutes of meeting you. And it's just like, I don't know if that comes from your sales background or whatever it is, but it's really endearing. And you definitely make everybody around you and in the room feel incredibly welcome. So thank you for that.
Well, again, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, listen, we did meet at Ursa down in Dallas. And as I left there, I came down very ill with the COVID virus. Yep. So I don't know if I'm angry or upset at you or whoever it is that gave it to me, but it took me 2 weeks to get over that thing. But we did make it, and happy to be back to real life again.
Yeah, I can promise you it wasn't me. I have proof.
I did too. I had proof too. It just didn't work.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So before we dive into the show, and listen, for those of you listening or watching the show right now, we're going to dive into some things that you're going to be walking away from thinking, wow, this is unbelievable. I'm getting so much value and insight, and I've never thought of things like this. So stick around, really watch this. But I want everyone to get to know Paul just a little bit. So we're going to play a game called 2 Truths and 1 Lie. You down for that?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to do so.
Great. So the premise of the game is real simple. You're going to come up with 2 things that are true about yourself and 1 that's a lie. And I'm going to try to guess to see which one is the lie. So 3 things in no particular order.
Wow. Okay. I was involved in a hot air balloon accident back in the late 90s. As a kid growing up, I ran in the streets of Detroit, Michigan with the gangs. And at one time, I was a high-level national competitive softball player. Those are my 2 truths and 1 lie.
Wow. So we got hot air balloon crash, in a gang in Detroit, and then the third one is, what was the third one again?
A high-level national competitive softball player back in the 80s.
Competitive softball. Man, Paul, this is going to be a tough one to guess. Okay. I'm going to say you were not in a gang in Detroit.
Good guess. You nailed it. I was not.
Okay.
I did grow up in Detroit, Michigan as a kid, but I didn't run in the streets with the gangs. My mother would not allow for that. Yeah.
I was looking for the tattoos. So I didn't see any fake tattoos or anything. So
I was in a hot air balloon accident in the state of Kentucky back in 96 or 97.
Was this where the hot air balloon was already well up in the air and you crashed?
That is correct. We crashed in a cornfield in the farmland, and once we crashed and everybody survived, although there was cuts and bruises and scratches, we walked quite a distance to find a farmhouse that had a telephone that we could call. But yes, that did happen. Yes.
Yeah, I can't believe you survived that. And then, so tell us a little bit about your competitive softball days. You played competitive softball?
Well, as a young man, I guess I got one of the few gifts he did give me. He gave me ability to hit a softball a long ways. And as I was a kid growing up, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, I played a lot of competitive softball. And at one time, I got to tour the country with one of the top teams and all-time great teams and organizations called Howard's Western Steer out of Denver, North Carolina.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Softball's a lot of fun. I'm sure you would whoop me in it. I've played it, but I know you're better than me already.
Well, it's changed a lot, and I haven't played in a long time. So you probably would be very competitive with how I would play today for sure.
No, I'm too gimpy. Okay, great. Well, listen, I want to dive in to real quickly for those of you that don't know what ABC Financial is. ABC Financial is it's a technology platform, and it's also they run financial services where they do billing, collections, pretty much everything you would need for the fitness industry. They serve thousands and thousands and thousands of fitness clubs and all over the country. And Paul has been with them forever. So I want to walk way back to the origin story, even before you were with ABC. Young Paul, 19, 18, maybe even 17 years old. Tell us where you were at and how that went down.
Sure. So for me, it started at 16, the commercial fitness industry exposure back in 1983, and I bought my first membership at a place called the Spa in Gastonia, North Carolina. And back in those days, the industry was still very fragmented in the sense that men would work out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and women were allowed to work it on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and nobody worked out on Sunday, especially in the Bible Belt, because that was blasphemy. You couldn't do that. And so that was 1983, 1984, and that's just the way it was. And that's how I got started. And then subsequently, shortly thereafter, I was exposed to and got to hang out with some guys that were from the professional wrestling industry. And two of those gentlemen opened up some health clubs and asked me to come aboard with them. And that's really how I got involved in working in health clubs. And again, back in those days, it wasn't so much about technology. In fact, there was little to no technology, but it was a lot about, working people out and spotting them and making them shakes and socializing with them and making them feel better about themselves and so forth. And that's what we kind of did in the 80s. Back then with 100,000 or 125,000, you could have a very nice health club or gym. It's
Right.
not nothing like it is today for sure. But we had 4 clubs, and that's what we did. And that's how subsequently I was introduced to this company called the American Billing Company out of Little Rock, Arkansas. It was founded by a gentleman by the name of Jim Botine. And Mr. Botine was a martial artist out of the ATA Taekwondo Association, and he had pivoted at some point in 1980, 81 to open up his first commercial fitness health club. And he was smart enough at that point to recognize that he had a need. For most of us knuckleheads that grew up in commercial fitness, many of us found it quite easy to sell memberships. It was easy to bring in new memberships to your facility. And really, it wasn't that complicated to get them to sign a 1 or 2 or 3 year contract. But where it got kind of complicated and tough to do was just because you had a piece of paper that said it had a $600 value to it, now you had to collect it. And that's where there was a lot of attrition, loss rates, failures. And in fact, that's why so many of the early clubs that were started by entrepreneurs failed, is just because they didn't have a financial foundation that allowed them to at least collect efficiently or at a high percentage all those memberships that they sold so easily. Well, Mr. Botine was one of those guys that figured it out before it was too late. And so he started a company called the American Billing Company. And for those first 10 or 11 years of its existence, it was a means to an end. He simply needed that company to service his clubs, and his club grew from 1 club up to 13 clubs at one time. And he had 7 tanning salons. And he also subsequently owned his own martial art association, the United States Taekwondo Association. And so ABC, the American Billing Company, was there to take care of his business. And along the way, there were a few people that had heard about him, and they might reach out to him to ask if he would do the billing for them as well, which he accommodated. But he certainly didn't focus on ABC. He didn't try to grow ABC. Again, it was just a means to an end to make sure. And back in those days, he had this vision that he was going to be a very large health club owner throughout the South. And it wasn't until 1990, 91, and that's when I joined it. Mr. Botine used to have educational seminars. So if you were one of his few clients, you could come out over the weekend and he would teach people how to answer the phone, how to give a tour, how to advertise and market properly, how to lay a club out in terms of the equipment. But you had to be one of his customers. And so I got the opportunity to do that. And subsequently, I met my wife, who worked at ABC. She wasn't my wife at the time.
Wow.
And we started a dating romance, a long distance, over 750 miles. And we did that for about 6 months. And I was going broke and getting worn out. So something had to give. And so she decided for me that I would move out to Little Rock. And then when I moved out to Little Rock, I thought foolishly and very naively that I would just immediately go to work for the American Billing Company. And it was really at that time that Mr. Bottin, through the influence and encouragement of others, decided to pivot again and focus on building ABC, no longer called the American Billing Company. Now it was called ABC Financial Services, and stop focusing on the health clubs. And over the course of the 90s, he sold off his health clubs to his former managers and so forth. And we really began working in focus and in tenacity and backbone and hard working to try to help our customers that we went out and solicited how to run better clubs, how to sell cleaner memberships, and how we could do a better job for them collecting more money from more members. And that really was kind of the motto. He or she that collected the most money from the most members would ultimately win.
Right.
And
Paul, let me back you up real quick.
Sure.
I want to track backwards just a little bit. So you found the love of your life in Arkansas, and she lured you over there. So now you're in Arkansas. How, and you said you assumed you would just go to work for ABC. How did you end up actually working for ABC?
Yeah, that's it. I kind of blocked that out. That's kind of a black area in my mind because I had to take an ego hit. My ego took a big hit because I literally asked Mr. Bottin about 15 times for a job, and he would politely decline and would not allow me to come to work because my wife worked there, and who wants to have a new husband-wife situation if it goes bad, right? Now it gets real messy. And so he politely declined, and it really wasn't to about a year and a half after I moved out that I convinced my wife to move back to North Carolina with me, and we were going to get back into the gym industry. When he decided that, one, he was focusing on ABC, really never even had much of a sales force, if any at all. And two, he didn't want to lose my wife, Jan, who was like the number 2 or number 3 person in that company. And it was a small company, 25, 30 people at the time. But he didn't want to lose her. So he went ahead and said, listen, I've been thinking about, growing ABC, and I need a sales team. You seem like a likable guy. I'll take the risk. If you're willing to take the risk, what do you think? And so that's how it kind of got started. And the one thing, Nick, I always tell everybody that Mr. Bottin told me upon the time of he and I agreeing to my new employment was, he said, look, it's really not that complicated. We're going to have you come in here, work hard, and take care of our customers. The customers would take care of ABC, and ABC will take care of you. Well, I found working for him for almost 27 years consecutively that everything he said was true. And, in terms of what we were compensated, what we were benefited, the blessings, the good things of raising a family. We have 6 children.
That's awesome.
And so many of our other employees, that little company that had 25 or 30 employees eventually ended up having 850 employees under his ownership.
Incredible.
Under his ownership. And so we, in many ways, we were just knucklehead club guys, but we understood the business and we understood what the club people were going through. And often we didn't have to talk about the billing services. What we had to do was convince them that we understood what they were going through and how tough the business was and how we could add value to their business through our relationships, through our contacts, through our knowledge base that we had. And so it just worked. And we grew a little company that, really was just a speck on the map to the largest company in our industry for that matter. And
so let's talk about that.
Sure.
So you come on board, there's about 25 to 30 people at the time. Your wife is employee number 3, one of the top 3 people, almost a founder, if you will, in some sense. And so you come in and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to give this a shot at sales. You probably can already sell. You had health club experience at the time. What was the first year like for you personally as you entered the company and it's, the whole startup culture back then and everything?
Sure. One of the things that was happening at that time is Mr. Bottin made a commitment to focus on growing ABC. There was another gentleman, Tom Plummer, who had worked for one of the few companies that were the ABCs of the time. This particular one was Tuition Financial, which became ASF International. But Tom had left there, Tom Plummer, and he created an educational seminar tour that were held on the weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And he convinced Mr. Bottin to sponsor that event, that program. And in return, Tom would tell all the clubs that come or educate all the clubs that come that they should talk to us. And me and another guy, Torn Blanco, would be in the back of the room, the seminar, and at the breaks or at lunchtime, people could come and ask questions, and it was up to us to make them feel good about our services, or that our services could help them. And it worked. Tom's suggestion worked, and in great part, Tom Plummer had a lot to do with our early stage growth, because we would do 1 or 2 seminars a month, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, and clubs would show up and Tom would say, you should talk to ABC, and they did, and then we had to close them. So in many ways, I tell everybody, it was like the wild, wild west. There was a lot of order taking, and when you get a lot of order taking, unfortunately, you have the back end infrastructure support, conversion, onboarding stuff that you got to deal with, right?
You got fulfillment.
That was the case for us, and we had to figure all that out. And sometimes we had to figure that out on the fly. But there was commitment. We were a family business. There was a strong family culture. Mr. Botine and myself believed everything started and ended with the customer. And if the customers didn't win, if we couldn't help the club owners succeed, then there was no need for our business to even exist. So we took that very seriously. There was a strong passion for that. And many of our customers became our family and our friends. Some of these guys, and still today, have been with ABC 25, 28, 30 years. And as our company grew because their businesses grew, and we helped them with that. But anyways, awesome. That's kind of how it all got started. And Mr. Botine really never had a strong desire to ever sell the business. Now that did change 4 years ago. But for 27 years, it was, especially since 1992 on, it was heads down, work hard, take care of the customer, and let's grow this thing. Let's see where it would take us. There really wasn't a vision. There wasn't a plan. There wasn't a thing, let's get to 10,000 clubs or anything. It was just go in and work hard and take care of the people. We were mostly club guys. We liked the club industry. We hung out with people that liked the club industry, and it all just worked. And when they would tell us they had a problem, we would certainly work towards hearing that, understanding that, and giving them a solution. And if we could make that work, then it was a win-win situation.
So good. I love hearing the origin stories, because we're going to get to the later part here in just a little bit. But I want to know, during that first couple of years, you're grinding, you're probably wearing a lot of different hats. You're customer facing all the time. What were some of the biggest challenges that you were facing, and some of the biggest lessons learned throughout that time?
Yeah, well, you're right. You are wearing multiple hats. It's one thing to sell the account, then you got to convert it and onboard it. In those days, there wasn't separate infrastructure. There wasn't separate staffing. That was, you take off your sales hat and you put on your conversion hat. And because technology was so restricted back, even in the mid 90s for that matter, you'd get these 3.5-inch discs, or the bigger floppy. I get 5 1/4 floppy disk, and all the club's data, their whole entire business data would show up. And there was no wiring or transferring of the data like there is now. And then when you get that disc, you had to work during the day, right? Because I was selling and other people had their other responsibilities. But at night, then you had to stay later. So, you work from 8 to 5, and then you work from 5 to 10 doing the conversion. And so, like I said, because we were growing so fast, that created a lot of challenges with a number of aspects of the business, but certainly being able to convert them and get the data correct. And then being able to, they haven't shut their business down. They haven't stopped running their business. They haven't stopped selling memberships, right? And so you got to be able to make that all blend together without any interruption. Now we that's never a utopia type thing. There's always challenges and headaches that go with that, but we got pretty good at it over the years. I mean, ABC's probably done, north of 5,000 conversions. So we figured it all out. But back in those early days, it was tough because timing was so important, and we just didn't have the benefit of today's technologies efficiencies to help us with that timing.
Yeah. Where did you get your work ethic from? You said you were working till 10 o'clock at night, all day long selling. Who taught you that? Where did that come from?
Well, yeah. And the other thing I would share, Nick, is back in those days, we might travel 20 to 25 days a month too. So, your marriage, you're having kids, you're raising kids. My wife's working in the business, and she did so to 2000. So, again, I don't sugarcoat it or try to make it feel like it was some wonderful experience. It was stressful. It was chaotic. It was the wild, wild west. It was brutal, but at the same time, it was fun. It was wonderful. The relationships, the people, and so forth that you come in contact with. It was tough to find the time. And you're traveling 150 to 200 days a year. And you're working, when you're in the office, you're working 12, 15-hour days, but you believe you're doing that for a purpose and for a cause. And again, so many of these guys, these club guys, were our friends. And so you didn't want to let them down. You wanted to be able to take care of them and make sure they could be successful. And so we did it. And I don't, a lot of it, I don't even remember anymore. You do get those black spaces in your mind because you go through that and you just black it out. But we figured it out. And as the years went by, just like any business, just like any industry, there is a level of maturation that happens, and you get more formal, and you're able to add more resources and add more bodies and so forth. And we did that. I don't know that we always did it the right way, but we did it. We figured it out, and we just got better and better at it. And at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, I don't apologize, because some of the very best brands in the commercial fitness industry chose to use ABC Financial Services. And of course, now it's ABC Fitness Solutions, but they chose to use us. So there had to be something good in that, something pure in that, because they didn't have to use us. They could have chosen anybody else's platform. In some cases, they could have done it themselves, built out their own infrastructure. But for whatever reason, they chose us, and we're thankful of that. And we're very appreciative of all those relationships that we've had all these years.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I know about you, and that it's kind of like an underlying passion that I continually hear about, I've heard in your other interviews, is your care and concern for the customer first. And I think that's what's driven you. You don't want to let people down. You want to make sure that they are completely fulfilled and overflowing. And that delivery, that passion, allowed you to work that 12-hour day for a while, knowing that you didn't want to drop the ball. You want to make sure everybody was happy and successful, right?
Yeah, no question. Again, I give credit, and it's a testament to Jim Bottine, our founder and original owner, because he had such a strong conviction for that. And the fact that he was building clubs and growing clubs in the 80s, when it was very, very difficult to just borrow money. You were borrowing money from banks at 18 or 20% interest. And, just to be able to keep your doors open, right? It wasn't an easy thing. And he had great respect for anybody that, followed in his path or had the same vision and the same dreams that he had. And he knew how difficult it was. So, that really was a part of our culture. When somebody asked us, what's the important thing, sum it up in one line, we just simply always said, we told all of our employees from orientation on, if you spent 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days with any of our customers, your only goal was at the end of that interaction, whether it was by phone, whether it was on site, whether at URSA trade show, whatever it was, when you were done interacting with that customer, were they a raving fan of ABC? If you did that, nobody had any problems. That was the goal. That was the objective. That was the achievement. If you didn't accomplish that, I will tell you, especially in those early days, we took that very personally. And we may not have always course corrected the right way, but we felt like we got our message across. It was important to have raving fans as customers for us. And let's face it, without your customers, what do you have in a service business? They're paying your bills. They're putting, they're buying your homes. They're putting your kids through college, right? So you got to love them. They have to be family. And they can only do that if they're successful. So there was an alignment that as long as we help them be successful, then our company could be successful. And that's kind of the way we went at it for a long time.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. So for those of you listening, it's really, a customer-centric mindset, which is a nice transition, because you're passionate about the member experience for health clubs. You have so much insight into the member experience, and you have a lot to say about it from a data standpoint, from being inside of 10,000 health clubs, shaking hands, from doing it yourself. Just such a wealth of knowledge. Let's transition for just a minute and talk a little bit about the customer experience and journey, and what you're seeing from back then to now, and if there's been any changes and where some of the gaps may be now.
Yeah, and listen, for when I took all those trips all those years, it was very rare for me to be alone in that. There would either be other ABC people with me, but more importantly, there would be other health club owners with me. And there would be times when we would organize trips and show up in a city and load up in a van with 5, 6, 7 owners, and we would just travel around and visit as many clubs as we could. And in great part, the vision for that activity was that we just wanted to get goosebumps on our arms. We wanted to open the door and be transformed. We wanted to be a consumer for 5 minutes and say, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. How did they achieve this? How did they create this environment? The lighting, the audio, the video, the colors, the equipment, the staffing, everything. And to be frank, going back 20 or 25 years ago, you didn't often get to do that. Sometimes you'd have to go to 200 clubs or 300 clubs to find one club. And today, you might have to go to 50 to 100 clubs to find one club that gives you those goosebumps and gives you that experience. And so when we would walk into a club that we did not get that experience, sometimes we would be there less than 3 minutes because you could just tell whoever the owner operators were, they didn't either understand, they didn't get it, or in most cases, sadly, they were so undercapitalized when they took on the project, they never get caught up and get their head above water, and it's just been a slow drain. And so, a few years ago, one of the big purple brands, the founder of that brand made an exclamation that personal training was a scam. And while I think he was being self-serving and saying what he said, from those of us who grew up in the industry and been around the industry all these years, he wasn't exactly wrong about it, Nick, either. Our industry has struggled to understand and achieve what we call professional services. You would like to enter into a relationship with the consumer in some capacity, and when you do so, the goal would be to under promise and over deliver, and have that consumer member say, boy, one of the best decisions I've made this month or this year was joining this facility. They're so nice and friendly, and the club's clean, the equipment's great, and I just can't wait. I go work out 3 or 4 times a week for 45 minutes to an hour, and I just can't wait to get there. I wake up, I got my wife nagging at me, I got the kids nagging at me, then I go to my office, and all day long I got employees complaining, and everybody's upset and sad and expecting. They want my time, they want my attention, they want me to make decisions. The only time I get for me is when I show up at my club for an hour, 4 days a week. And when I do, I have expectations, right? I want to see the smiling faces. I want them to know my name. I want the club to be clean. I don't want to have to wait 15 minutes for equipment. I don't want to see a bunch of out of order signs. I don't want to go into the locker rooms and smell things I shouldn't smell or see things I shouldn't see, right? So it's more difficult today to operate a successful gym or health club than it's ever been. And that's why in many ways I'm so proud of our industry and the current people. You had to have the pioneers to get it started and get it rolling, guys like Ray Wilson and so forth. But as these years have gone by, you got to keep it going. And we've seen a lot of improvements, but I do think an area that needs further advancement is the professional services. So when that consumer goes in, whether it's one-on-one personal training, semi-private training, small team training, or larger classes, that they get the type of attention and the support follow-up that's necessary, that you could almost say, commercial fitness is starting to feel more wellness oriented or medical oriented, that it does seem professional, right? And that we are delivering on our promises. Again, much easier to get them to buy a membership than it is to fulfill what they asked from you when you did get them to sign the agreement. Sure. And so we got some wonderful products. There are wonderful brands in our industry. If anything, the consumers are getting better value today than they've ever received. But man, I can't encourage the current group and the group that's coming after them. We should make our industry an industry that says there's real professional services. And I think we'll get there. I think we'll achieve it. All the private equity and venture capital money that's flooded in the last 10 years, it's not going to go away. It's going to keep coming. I suspect as us old timers, start going off and grazing in the pastures, that we are going to see some of those improvements for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. So when you're saying professional services, you're primarily talking about personal training, and then other back-end services like the group training, the in studios that are inside the health clubs and things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, the example, and this, I just experienced this the other day in the club that I work out here locally in Little Rock. I went in there and I do what I do from a distance. I always try to watch. I try to keep score for the club or the owner to say whether or not this club can be successful and sustainable. And one of the things you always monitor and look at is, one, how many trainers do they have in the facility at any given time, especially if it's at peak time? And then what are those trainers doing? And so if you have peak time and you got 3 trainers sitting in the cubicle and they're not on the phone, they're not following up, and they're just sitting there talking about yesterday's football game, or worse, they're on the floor training somebody, but while they're on the floor training them, they're spending their whole time on their phone texting, or they're pulling up websites or whatever, things that they're thinking about. Christmas is coming, how am I going to buy my girlfriend, whatever, and they're really not socially engaging with their member. It's one thing for the member to do the exercise correctly, and there is value in that, of course, but the other part of it is so mental and emotional, and there's no better time to help a consumer, and the whole aspect of the gyms have become the 21st century of the bars, right? People
Yep.
need, that's why they all came running back after COVID scare has passed, because they need that social engagement. They need that interaction. They need that support and that encouragement. And so again, what I would tell all the personal trainers is if you get, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes with the consumer, you need to make that consumer feel like that's the most important time of their day and they're the most important person in the world. And then make sure that when you're done with them, they validate the reason I joined this gym is because of you. You make me feel special. You make me feel important. You make me feel better about myself. And when I say professional services, it's getting where that becomes the standard for our industry. And we're not there yet. We've made some improvements. There's no question, but we got a ways to go.
You're a dying breed, Paul. You are a dying breed.
Well, I don't know. I hope I'm a dying breed in that I'm not the type of person who can move us forward, because my future was 20 years ago.
Right.
And there's so many bright young professionals. They're educated. Some people coming into the industry now that are from much larger industries, and they're bringing their ideas and their experiences. And I'm a proponent of that. I'm a supporter of that. I want to live long enough to see the validation for the commercial fitness industry. It should be viewed by young professionals, 17, 18, 19, 21-year-old kids coming out of college. It should be viewed as a career path, and there should be good paying opportunities for them to work 15, 18, 20 years, general manager, sales manager, personal trainer, fitness director, whatever the case is. And our attrition historically has been way too high. And part of that, I do believe, is because we don't view our industry as a professional services industry like it's deserving of. And our members deserve it to be viewed that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk about that one particular subject for a long time, and have had a lot of people on the show like Jeff Dyer that have really dialed that aspect in and other things. But I want to move on because there's so many other things I want to talk about. We only have a few minutes left. So you have insight into a lot of data. You get a really good airplane view of the fitness industry. Talk to me right now about the fitness industry. Right now we're in December of 2021. We're about 18 to 20 months past when the pandemic started. Where's the fitness industry at? And then where do you see it going next year in 2022?
Well, that's a great question. The first thing I would share with you, Nick, is simply this. Historically, in the commercial fitness industry, when something bad happened to society, you think about 9/11, right? Mm-hmm. Whenever something bad would happen, it would actually be a blessing, a financial blessing to our industry. The clubs would do better when there was some sort of society tragedy going on. For the first time, certainly the first time in my lifetime, and when you think about the industry only being 75 or 80 years old, as far as I know, this is the first time something bad has happened to society that our industry took it right in the nose. We took a punch in the nose or punch in the gut, and it knocked us down. It didn't knock us out. And one, I'd like to say that I think that's a tribute to the guys and gals out there operating these businesses, because there was an argument that said this punch really should have took out a lot more clubs. We're very fortunate, one, that it didn't hurt more clubs or devastate more clubs and put them out of business. Two, we should be thankful that there was financial support from our government, from our taxpayer dollars that we've all paid in to help with that, whether that was the PPP money or the other special loan programs that they offered out there. So that did help stand up the industry. But as we sit here today, Nick, when we talk about December of 2021, we're not 100% back. We're not. And we won't be 100% back probably by the end of 2022, but there is evidence, there are indicators, and there's certainly in the data that you reference that clubs are getting healthy. They are getting healthier. They are healthier today than they were this time last year. And regardless of the COVID impact and the fact that we've had the Delta variant, now we have the Omicron variant, the clubs are still doing it. We're not 100% back. We're not out of the woods yet. But there are strong indicators that says that 2022 could be better than 2021 and should be better. Probably won't get us back all the way. And then as we go into 2023, me personally, I'm still bullish on it because I strongly believe that human nature has not changed in the sense that human nature desires that social connectivity and interactivity. And so as much as a lot of people may have taken up working out or exercising at home or outdoors or whatever the case is, I don't see that as a long-term sustainability for most. Now, there are some that fits perfectly. They were like that 15 years ago, and they'll be like that 15 years from now. I think a lot of the people, when you think about the 64 million people that had a commercial fitness membership, by and large, the majority of those millions of people that actually were working out once a week, twice a week, 4 times a week, they need that social interaction. And I think the evidence of 2021 is proving that out. And I see it myself in the clubs you mentioned Jeff Dyer earlier. We were able to visit some of Jeff's clubs down, and we had dinner with him and visited 4 or 5 of his crunch clubs down in Florida back in April and May of this year. And I got to tell you, man, we were so motivated. I talked about the chills. We walked in, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the clubs were full and people were working out, and it was rocking and rolling. And they've done such a nice club, the Crunch brand has, with their 2.0 version. And guys like Jeff, I got to get, he's one of the pioneers, but you got to give him a lot of credit that he was able to bring in a younger generation of leadership, and they all have innovated, and they've done a great job of that. And so I would not be pessimistic. I'm not down. I'm not bearish on the industry. I think we've got a lot of improvements that's going to come. I just don't think the shot in the arm, give it another month and it's all going to be back. I don't think we're going to see it. In fact, we haven't seen that. And I don't think we're going to see that in 2022, but it's going to be sustainable because people need that. They need that interaction. They need the ability to be able to be encouraged and supported and trained. And so I know at my own club here, I'm seeing faces the last 3 months that I didn't see a year ago, and they're back. So it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm bullish as well. And I think you're right. It's going to take another year. I think that what happened is the 20-ish, 24, 25%, whatever is that we did lost, almost 30% that we lost. We're going to see a more sophisticated owner operator, somebody who's more aware and dialed in, somebody who's utilizing technology better, somebody who is really focused on that customer experience and member journey more. And really just eyes wide open and paying more attention, and you're going to have that better experience. It won't be across the board, but you're going to see a lot of that, especially as the venture capital money comes in. You're going to get a lot more sophistication, and then maybe on the back end of that, the professional services will level up with it and be viewed that way as that becomes more sophisticated. So I agree.
Say amen, brother. Yeah, and I think 3 to 5 years from now, I could see less brands, but the brands that'll be there will be more sustainable and successful, and there'll be more clubs, right? And to your point, the professional money has discovered the industry, and that's not going to change or go away. And you know who benefits from that? The consumers. Yeah. So it's we all should be very happy and encouraged by what we've seen this last year and a half, in spite of the challenges. But look forward, work hard, have strong faith, but work hard, and it's going to come back. It'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to close the show out with just some valuable lessons. Going back, what would you tell young Paul, or what would you tell somebody that's in their 20s, early 20s, and they're starting out in the fitness industry, or as an entrepreneur, business owner, starting a health club, or even in the technology space? What advice would you give them for success?
Well, if since you brought up young Paul first, if you would, you don't go through any journey for a long period of time without looking back and maybe having some regrets, or thinking, boy, I wish I would have, known then what I know now. And if I had to summarize what old Paul would say to young Paul, is I would encourage a lot more balance in life, right? When you're 20 and 25 and 30, you kind of get caught up in it, and you have all the passion and the piss and vinegar in you. You sometimes forget the balance, and the manifestation of that can be very harmful to many. It could be with your, the relationship with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, your kids, your grandkids, or whatever the case is. So my encouragement now, is being the old guy that has gathered some wisdom, is I would encourage any young professional, bring the passion, and certainly you have to work hard. You have to stay focused on what it is you're trying to achieve, but don't forget there has to be balance. But what I would further just say to the other young professionals that are coming into the industry is, there is nothing wrong, nothing bad that ever happens when you get up every morning, and the majority of your day is facilitating the assistance and the help of others. We have an old saying that we've used many times: do good things happen, right? And so when you can get up and go to a gym and use your enthusiasm and your personality and your experience and knowledge to help others, there's nothing bad about that. And we've had that in our industry. I think we'll continue to have that. And hopefully, as you pointed out, and I agree with you, that we need to, clean up the professional service part of it a little bit, but bring the passion, have the balance, Stay focused. Always remember, if your customer doesn't win, I don't care if you're selling a product or a service, if your customer doesn't find value in it, you're never going to win. You're never going to have a sustainable, successful business, right? So, and to that note, on an entrepreneurial type thing is, and I don't consider myself a subject matter expert because of how technology has evolved and grown and changed so much. But anytime you can identify something that there's a need for, or there's a sector of our population or a segment of our population that seems to be saying, boy, I wish we had this, or our lives would be so much more efficient if we could find something like this. I would encourage young entrepreneurs to study that and focus on that and find something. And then when you go fulfill that, again, it makes selling easier. It makes facilitating easier, logistics easier. Find something that somebody needs and then bring it to them.
That's so good. That's so amazing. Paul, I knew we would hear some wisdom from you. You can't have that much experience and grit and time and just not have some nuggets of wisdom to share with everybody. So I really appreciate you coming on the show today. It's been really refreshing and energizing. And I hope you're part of the industry even when you're in diapers, right? And just shedding your wisdom on us continually and kind of shepherding and guiding the industry as we move forward, right?
Well, I appreciate those kind words. So many of my friends and my family are still a part of the industry. For the rest of my life, I will be a part of the industry, maybe not in the formal sense, but we're not done at ABC. We've had great investors. Our private equity sponsor, Thoma Bravo, have been great. The guys, Scott Crable and our board members have been great. Some of the executives we brought in, leadership of Bill Davis. He's done a wonderful job, and we're not done with the journey. As much achievement and success that ABC has had, we expect the next 3 to 5 years to double, if not triple, that success. And we look forward to that. So, you never get to the point in life where you just want to go play golf or pickleball or tennis every day, right? You want to have something that is challenging and competition and for me, business is a competition in a sense. And so we look forward to it, and I appreciate your support. And if I can ever give anybody input or help or support, I'd be happy to call upon me. You let them do so. And if you need me, I'm here.
That's awesome. I love it. And I'll put some links back to ABC in the show notes and make sure that everybody can connect if they want to connect in that way. So I appreciate it. So remember, everyone, the more you know, the more you grow. So like, share, and subscribe to your success. And until next time, we'll see you soon.